I'm Ruan, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ruan.
Please excuse me if I pass out. I must be honest, this never gets easier. This milestone shares the fight that my ego and fear puts up every year for the 24 hours leading up to this point never really gets any easier, you know. But kind of how I see it today, the fact that I still sit here regardless of the way it makes me feel is where I'm at in recovery, you know, where, as I see, is I have a responsibility not just to myself to be here, but I have a responsibility to everyone in this room, you know. And I'm not saying that through ego, is that I've been there and I've done this, and I walk ahead because I walk through that fear to show everyone here that regardless of that, we can do that. We can still carry on. We can still get over the fear. We can walk through it, you know, and I try to remind myself of that, you know, of that responsibility that I have and what we have towards each other. But it doesn't make it any easier anyway. But I'm here, and kind of, yeah, this is my story, you know. And the thing is also, I start kind of in the beginning. It's where I normally, for the first few years of my recovery, I used to share that I didn't really feel any different. I couldn't see that I acted different, and the fact is that is honestly just not true. You know, I just hadn't had the opportunity to reflect on a few of those things. You know, especially the earlier days growing up when there was no alcohol, there was no drugs, there was none of that stuff. You know, it was just me being a kid. And as time has gone by, I've had that opportunity to reflect. And if I can suggest anything to anyone, is to try to do that. To try to see, because the indifference that I try to segregate myself from, or I try to blame certain things in my life for where I'm at today, was a big stepping stone for me in my recovery. You know, for a long time leading up to coming to recovery, I blamed a lot of stuff in my life. I blamed a lot of scenarios in my life, which I'll touch on. But as time has gone by in recovery and I've been able to reflect on that stuff, I've realized from early days, you know, I was a little arsehole, to put it lightly. You know, my behavior when I was a kid wasn't okay. You know, I look at some things, how I used to treat my mom, it's not okay, you know. And that all, and even the fear and stuff I feel today, how rough that was in my life, in early on, you know, moving from going to school, starting new schools, you know, I have always sat with this fear, I've always sat with this anxiety, and I've always used my defects to try hide those things, you know. I've always used defects and my defects of character to try conceal those things. I always share about when I moved from Johannesburg to East London, I can't remember, grade 5, and how I kind of persuade this whole attitude of angry and resentful and trying to keep people at an arm's length because I didn't want to get hurt. I don't want to expose how scared I was in that experience, you know. And then obviously playing sports and stuff, when that affirmation came, when that affirmation from girls came, when all the attention came, I didn't need to have that fear, you know, that fear was gone. When I was fixed by external circumstances, that fear was gone. You know, and that type of stuff's been there right from the start, you know. There wasn't a certain event that made this magically happen, you know. There wasn't a certain heartbreak that magically made this happen, you know. It's always been there. And it's something, you know, and I love analogies in this program because there's a hell of a lot of them. As you spend time here, you start hearing them. There's something that I thought of the other day. It's how my disease is and how my life in active alcoholism is. It's like going through life inside my house, you know, being in my house blindfolded. That's what my disease is like. is I will be blindfolded, I will carry on, because I know where everything is, everything will be fine. I won't take that blindfold off. I will carry on walking around, and doing so, I will bump into things. I will cause chaos. I will bump into people. I will hurt them. I will break things, and I will cause carnage. But in my head, I know where everything is in my house, and I will carry on walking. I will carry on going around. I won't take this blindfold off. And that blindfold eventually came off for me when I started working a program, this 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That blindfold was eventually lifted, and I was able to change. And so anyway, I just thought that very much applied to my life. So I kind of wanted to skip all the airy-fairy stuff from early, because like I said, there was no starting point, there was no end point. Where even with the drinking, when I started drinking, I think the first time I picked up a drink was in grade 8. And it wasn't an aha moment, it was kind of, I had no idea what I was doing. I got shit-faced and I passed out in the road, throwing up all over myself. That's basically all it was. There were no consequences for it. I think the biggest thing is my friend's dad shat all over me. He threatened to tell my mom, and that was it. There was no latching onto it. There was no, this is my solution, because and there was no consequence. And I look at that even like throughout most of like my schooling time. I went on and I drank, and we went to parties, and everything was extreme. It was still manageable. There was nothing that made alcohol my solution, because throughout this whole time, like I shared earlier, I had a solution, and that was what I got from everyone around me, the attention, the affirmation, all that stuff is what fixed me in that time. So there's nothing in early days say, no, there's alcohol and that is my problem. I've always been the problem. So moving on, where things kind of changed for me was 2010. I moved from East London to Johannesburg, back to Johannesburg. And the same stuff was there, the fear, the keeping people at arm's length. And, I say that, but I realized a friend of mine was sharing a good few months ago, and I kind of realized how much I still do that, how much I still keep people at arm's length out of fear, where I still put up a bit of this grumpy oak sitting in the meeting out of fear, and I'll be honest, I'm not. People that know me, people that have spent some time with me, I'm not like that, I'm not, yeah. Anyway, so looking 2010, moving to East London, back to Johannesburg, and again that same stuff, and everything again came right as soon as I started playing sports, as soon as I started getting the attention for that stuff. It's quite weird. Yeah, never mind. Sorry. As I'm sharing, I'm starting to realize things, because also I don't like planning these things. I don't like planning, sharing. It's kind of just like, here it is, let's go. So, because it's like someone shared with me a very long time ago, all I am sitting here is a channel of God, and whatever share, it's not meant for me, and that's also why, I don't totally understand the fear. That's why I know it's ego-driven, but I don't understand it, because I know today that me sitting here today I'm not sharing for myself. I'm not sharing to make myself better. What I'm sharing is for someone in this room, whether it be a few of you, whether it be one of you. It doesn't matter. Because all I am is a channel of God. So anyway, moving to Johannesburg, doing the same stuff, finding the same fixes, getting that attention, feeling all right, and also getting into my first serious relationship. And all this stuff was kind of, yet again, normal stuff as I was growing up, being a bit of an arsehole to everyone else, moving around the room, bumping into things, seemingly without purpose. But I know, so I carried on doing that. Up until the point that same girl, I took her out to, we were supposed to go out to a movie. And on the way to the movie, I got into a motorcycle accident where I it was quite bad. I ended up, I don't know how long in hospital, a good 6 months in a wheelchair. And when I speak about things that I blamed, that was one of them, you know. That was one of them. Because at that point, or when this all went down, what quickly came to fruition was that attention that I got from sports, that well-maintained attention I got from sports, that attention I got from girls, that all came to an end at that point, you know, and that was a very good thing to blame for acting the way that I did. Because, yeah, there was attention from having an accident, but that shame eventually comes to an end. So, needless to say, within months of that happening, my drinking had progressed. I found street drugs, and I know this is AA meeting, but using street substance is a big part of me reaching this point. So I do share about it, so excuse whoever it might offend. I picked up for the first time at that time, I picked up street drugs, and this is why I say that it's always been with me. The disease has always been there. Because as soon as my fix was taken away, my attention, my affirmation, and I had to start finding something else, within 6 months, I was stealing to find substance. I was drinking excessively. The year after the accident, I eventually dropped out of school. I had no ambition, I had no drive, I had no want for anything of my old life, you know. There was no drive for it, you know. All I wanted was to feel better. All I wanted was to fill that hole, and the only way I, at that point, knew how to do that was by using. So, obviously knowing that now, then it was just I was having a job. But then looking at things where this as well is where I'm quite fortunate, was that my using of street drugs, or from that point up until when I came into recovery this time, was only 4 years. Within 4 years of that accident, within 4 years of not being able to get the attention or whatever I used to thrive off, 4 years I reached my rock bottom. And that 4 years was carnage. I don't want to sit down and go into it, but it basically looked like a whole myriad of, I did rehabs. I did about 7 rehabs. No, hold on, fuck this. Let's go into it. Sorry. Because I like sharing this type of stuff, because, you know, especially early on in recovery, you relate to it, you know, and I don't know why people with, like, I always think multiple years don't share it, because there's very little people with multiple years, you know, and there's a lot of people that are new and need to hear this type of stuff. So, like I said, 2010, 2012, so from picking up 6 months, I started stealing. Within a year thereafter, or almost a year, I found myself in psychiatric hospital with a suicide attempt, and it started rolling. That started happening, you know. It started getting worse. I started getting involved with people that I shouldn't be. I started meeting and having friends that don't have the disease I have, but end up with the same consequences I have, jails and death. I started ending up with people that are not my people. You know, it's not the type of people that I grew up with. It's not the type of people I have now. It's not the type of people I want in my life. But that's what I was attracted to, and that's what I started doing. 2014, I went into my first treatment center. No, 2013, December 2013, I went into my first treatment center. So just to note, from December 2013, the end of 2013, up until September 2014, I did 7 treatment centers. It just started rolling. It just started getting better. It just started getting worse, you know. 4 years, I reached my rock bottom. Anyway, December 2013, I went into my first treatment center. I didn't want to be there. Actually, I came from out of a psychiatric hospital, and my mom said to me, "Lad, let's go have a look. Let's go have a look at this place. Let's see what it's all about. You know, let's see what it is." And she fucking left me there. I only later on found out that the reason they did that is because they wanted to go away. They wanted to go away on holiday, and the only way they could do that without worry and without stress is knowing that I'm locked away. So I ended up going to this treatment center. I seriously didn't want to be there. I didn't want anything to do with it. I kind of think I spent the first 3 days in my room not leaving, except for going to eat. Up until the point where there was a new girl admitted to the treatment center. Her name was Elaine Else. I'll never forget it. She's sorry, just my ego. She was a model for Ruan. So just to put you in the picture. So at that point, that happened. She came in, and I'm ready to recover. So I was on that, I went to all the fucking groups, I did everything, and I was there, man, I was ready. I just was going to stay sober now. So needless to say, Elaine and myself ended up in a relationship. And that was going to be great, because that's what you do, that's where you meet your partners, is in rehab. But anyway, it's fun. Elaine and myself are together. We're gonna do this recovery thing. I was still drinking at the time, but I was fine and I was manageable because I had what fixed me. I had this girl, I had this attention, and I had everything that made me feel all right. So I didn't lose myself to alcohol, because I had something else filling that void. Anyway, so that went on for a month or two. Eventually, I had a fallout with my mom, and I moved. I said, no, I'm going to go stay with Elaine in Secunda. So I went to go live with Elaine and her husband. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, she was married. Because that's also okay. Because we were meant to be, don't judge me. So I went to go live with Elaine and her husband. I was the gay friend at the time. I do share that every year, because through all of that, and that's also something I always bring up, the relationship stuff in treatment, because I'm one of those that try to find wives in treatment. I try fix myself off relationships. I try fix myself off the attention that I get from the opposite sex, and I try fill that void with that person, and it's never worked. And as you can see, I will do whatever I need to do to have that, regardless of how it makes that person feel, regardless of how much damage it causes. I will do what I need to do to feel better. I will do what I need to do to have that. Anyway, so obviously that didn't last. I ended up fucking exposing everything, and that also, like I said, that carnage. I found out a few years ago, Elaine and her husband's divorce. Whether that have anything to do with me, I won't know. But they're divorced today. But I bursted out. I exposed everything to her husband, and I went off on my merry way in Secunda. I don't even know today. I would not be able to tell you where the fuck Secunda is. But anyway, I'm off, and as it turns, I found and I started using that same night again, and I went back on it. Within months or within weeks, I was back in treatment, and that cycle had started. And from that time up until September, 28th of September, which is my sobriety birthday, 2014, I did 7 treatment centers. That was my last treatment center. So in a year's time, I did 7 treatment centers. And that's the progression of my disease. That's without anything, that's how fast I reached rock bottom. And for one, I'm extremely grateful for it, because I was able to grow up early. I was able to grow up in this program extremely early. I think I was 22. I had my whole life ahead of me, and I had the opportunity to get clean, get sober early. And I'm extremely grateful for that today. I think I'm 29 now. 20, okay. Tell me if I'm wrong. My math sucks. Anyway, so 2014 went into treatment, and I don't know, man. I can't tell you today. I can't tell you I went to be clean or to stop using or stop drinking. I can't tell you that. I can't honestly say yes. But what I did go in for was, I was sick of the way I was feeling. I was tired of the loneliness. I was tired of that fucking empty hole that you'll hear people speak about, that godless hole, basically. And so I decided to stay. I stayed in treatment a total of 18 months. You know, some of us are a bit sicker than most. So, but yeah, then as well, I go into about 8 months into treatment. I was able to leave the treatment center. I was able to go out, look for work, and do what we eventually all get to do. But in doing that, I can't remember exactly what I took Ashley from the kitchen. She was busy doing driving lessons, so I took her down to Scottsboro, and then I went to the mall while she was doing her thing, and dropped her off. And I went into the mall, and there, I don't know what the restaurant is now there before the Checkers. It used to be Guinea fowl, and as I walked in, I saw her again, and it was amazing. It was like, I don't know, I always explain it as like, you know, it's that type of thing you see in movies. As you walk in, I freeze, she freeze, we kind of stare at each other. Like, I was probably just like fucking standing there very awkwardly staring at her. It felt very special, okay? Anyway, so what I did with that was I decided I'm going to go pick up the guys from the halfway house, because I work a program and I'm of service. But we're going to go there. We're going to go to that restaurant. Because obviously my motives was to see her. I don't know. No, it was to try to get some attention. You know, my self-honesty is not where it was back then. Or my self-honesty, yeah, exactly what I said before. I'm not going to try that again. And we went there, and as obviously my God has a sense of humor, I was not able to look at her. Sat in fear, sat in, I don't know, whatever, but I couldn't look at her. But she gave me her number. I didn't say a word, she gave me her number, and this is meant to fucking be. Because what I did with that, she got in the car again as we were leaving, said, no, I work a program in front of everyone. I took the number, I threw it out the window. Because we're in treatment, no relationships in your first year. Threw it out the window after I put it in my phone. Because regardless of being what I had found in the treatment center, that was better. That feeling I had gotten, that attention I had gotten was better. And my selfishness, my self-seeking was on the fly, was running riot. Anyway, so that carried on. And I kept it in, kept a secret, started the dishonesty in treatment. And about a month later, I was able to leave the treatment center and go to the halfway house, which is amazing because now I'm able to spend a lot more time with her. But that dishonesty still sat. And the behavior still set. And when I speak about and this is also yet again why in early on I think we get suggested not to get into a relationship, is because there's no differentiation between what is the right way of doing this and what I can get out of it. I can honestly say to you, I had no thought of how this is going to affect her. I had no thought of how my dishonesty was affecting my friends and the people around me that really cared for me. All I knew was I wanted the way she made me feel. I did stuff like I took her to Margate for lunch because I can't let anyone see us, but that's fucking romantic. I was constantly dishonest, not to everyone around me, but to myself. I was constantly justifying it to myself. I was unable to see that this relationship is nothing to do with her, it's all about me and how this is making me feel. Anyway, so with all that behavior going on, it took me about a month and I ended up back in treatment. I didn't use, but through that behavior, through the dishonesty, selfishness, the way I was feeling, I must say, was worse than the way I felt when I came into recovery the first time. The way I felt then was worse. And for the first time in my life, I had the opportunity to become honest. And I'm not talking about step 5 honest, or with everyone else. That type of shit happens when you get exposed. But I had the opportunity to become honest with myself. It came to a point, because that stuff didn't get any better after I went back to treatment. I was still acting dodge. I was hitting on people. Had visitors come to, I don't know, those bras that are there. His sister was there and everything, and I actually I went and flirted with his sister during a visiting day, trying to get that attention. And I must be honest, please don't do that. You don't want to know what a concerned groups feel like after that. Anyway, so that behavior and that stuff never got better. I was still being myself. I was still being, I was still doing the same stuff. Anyway, so throughout that time as well, so I wrote it came to a point where I was sick, man. I was thinking of if I jump off the fucking balcony. Like, there was no solution. It was just me with that emptiness, yet again. And it came to the point I wrote in that little bookie, the Step 11 bookie, and I wrote everything, and I blamed my counselor, I blamed her, and I blamed everything. Like I said earlier, I blamed that accident for how long. This is why I am the way I am. I blamed the people I hung out with for everything. And nothing had changed, the same stuff now. I blamed everyone and everything for where I was at, the way I was feeling. The next day, handed in that little bookie, and yes, they do read them, because by breakfast I got called into the office. By breakfast I got called into the office, and I got sat down by my old sponsor and my new sponsor. My old sponsor is he passed a few years ago because of this disease, 10 years clean, relapsed and died. But what they did for me that day is one of the reasons I'm here. One of the reasons I'm still able to sit here today is because what they did was give me my reality. They were the first people to be, regardless of how I may act, regardless of how I may react, because that's a big thing in recovery, is that I'm still dodgy, I still do things that I'm not supposed to, I still say things that I'm not supposed to, but I have friends in my life that see those things and confront me on it. That stuff doesn't stop in treatment. That stuff carries on through recovery, and with that, I'm extremely grateful, because half of the time I can't see my own shit, and people point it out for me, and yeah, I can't emphasize how grateful I am for that stuff. Anyway, so they gave me my reality, and for the first time in my life, I became self-honest. For for the first time in my recovery, I became honest with myself, and I was able to see that it has nothing to do with anyone else but myself. I was able to acknowledge the selfishness. I was able to acknowledge everything I had done to that point. It was so weird. It was like a penny had dropped, an aha moment that people speak about. And it's so weird that, like, also I remember speaking to my sponsor a while before that and asking, how do you get faith? How do you have faith? How do you connect with God? How do you do those things? And it's like there's a lady that shared here, Arnell shared here a few weeks ago. It's like water. There's hundreds of words to explain water, but if you don't experience it, you won't know, And it's exactly this. So what he basically said to me was, go help someone, which is fucking useless at the time. But there was nothing more true, because faith only comes over time, and that in that time only comes with action. That faith comes with action and time. And the reason why I'm saying that is because throughout my time in recovery, I have many instances like this one I've just been sharing about, where I've had that acknowledgement of faith and that's where God is in my life, where God is there. Where obviously reaching that aha moment, the same day because also through all that shit, I had broken my car, I got my car back, I had lost my job because I had to go back to treatment the same day I got my job back. When that penny dropped and I was willing to change and I was willing to acknowledge my selfishness and my self-seeking, things started coming right. And kind of, I think this is a point where God was like, he was all over this stuff this time, and things had really begun to change. Anyway, so, yes, and now it's 7 years of recovery to share on. How long you oaks have? Hey? How much time do you guys have? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Candace being selfish because she also wants to share. Well, I'm not really. I can't really go into it. Obviously, 7 years of experience is not just one meeting. It's many. It's a long time to share about. But what I can share about is that when being in recovery, life is real. Life isn't sunshines and rainbows. Life isn't everything goes my way. Life isn't just fucking amazing. Life is difficult. Work is difficult. Relationships are difficult. Living with a disease, whatever, is difficult. But I come to these rooms, I work a program, I speak with my sponsor, I do work with sponsees, I spend time with friends. Regardless of how difficult life around me might be, it's amazing. I look at, it's not, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but anyway, I look at how things were. Like I remember when I was in treatment, my sponsor asked me, what do you want from your life? What do you want in recovery? And I think my response was extremely vanilla. It was like, I want a girlfriend and a house, and it was extremely vanilla. And then I was sitting this morning and thinking about it, like, just wow, how much things have changed. I'm married today. That selfish person, that self-seeking, that just taking from her has changed. I've had the opportunity to change through working a program. I think we've been together for 5 years. We've been married for 2. We're planning kids. We have a house. We're planning in the next few years maybe a different life away from here. You know, I've been working the same job for 5 years, and I have 300 staff. My life is not vanilla. It might seem a bit vanilla sometimes, you know, there's not a lot happening. But it's amazing, you know. I've not, in the last 7 years, had a day of maybe using will be better. I've not had that. Maybe and I'll be honest, like when shit goes down, when life gets real, maybe I must just run away. Maybe I should just fucking jump in front of this car. It happens. But I don't. I come here, I sit, I share honestly with you guys. I put my ego aside and I tell you exactly where I'm at. I sit here in fear. I'm not as fearful anymore because it's just fucking happening now. But I come here and I be honest. I work with a sponsor, I work a program, and I sit here 7 years later. So I'm just going to leave it there. Thanks for letting me share.
That was good.